Roger once again, Mud Fossil University, with evidence that shows the Earth was created from titans or some giant creatures, and that's what was written, and it appears to be the case. Now, this is a salt mine, and these are layers of flesh. This is the way flesh layers. That is not from volcanism and sedimentarism and all that business. This is layers of flesh, and I can show you in some of my specimens, and I will, that they come in these patterns. Now, additionally, they have to be fed with blood, and what happens with blood is it's got to be fed with red blood, and then it has to be returned through the veins, and in mud fossils that turns black. They're both iron. FeO3 is the red blood. You see? Red, 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 red. And then FeO2 is the black blood. Now FeO2 always turns hard. It's a different type of blood. It has one less oxygen, and it turns into the black iron. The red turns into rust and dusty particulates. Red ochre. Sometimes it'll turn into the Indians call it pipe stone. You know, Native Americans. Now, and I see it in exactly the patterns I would expect to see it in. And they are removing the black is exactly what I would expect to see. Now, if I'm wrong about this, I would like to have somebody in, because I can see maybe they painted these red spots. I don't know, but I know they're removing the black, which is the iron. That's what I'm saying. Now, anybody has a problem with that statement? I'd like to hear it. All right, remember I'm talking about the Great Lakes, and I'm telling you that the Great Lakes has salt underneath of it, and that's what they were mining, was the salt. And that was the red spots and the black spots, and they came down, they dig under the Great Lakes, and they mine that stuff from the flesh that was a dead creature. Now, what is going to be above the flesh of a dead creature is going to be the skin. And guess what? When they did, see, here's the skin. The skin up here, and you can see the fibrils and so forth that stick up out of it, because they drained. Well, they didn't drain it, but they did a thing with sonograms or whatever it is, where they go down and they measure everything, and then they make a topographical map of it. And I looked at it very carefully, and I looked at the specimens they took out. It's all mud fossils, and the surface is skin and tendons and emphasis points and all of that. And on Lake Huron, there's an area that somebody sent me a picture of that is all particles from a lung, and I can show you that, and I will. But this is what's going on here. This is skin. That's the bottom of the skin. Now, why did that? If they say that happened from a glacier, I totally dispute that. That's not from a glacier. That's from a creature that it is a skin. So if they say a glacier came through several times, scraped that to these depths, no, I disagree with that 100%. That is a creature. It has lower layers of flesh. Above that it has skin and the tendon emphasis points that holds all the skin together. And they create a fabric with all these little round balls, and the hex fibrils are the tendon straps. All right, I watched this in detail, and it's very good. And I believe these are possibly footprints that are showing up under the Great Lakes. I can see all skin under the Great Lakes. I can see the tendons and so forth. They claim and they show over and over that the structures under the Great Lakes are virtually identical to the structures that are in the Grand Canyon, with the same striations, the same layering and everything. To show here, this is draining the Great Lakes. The layering is like this, and that is the layering of flesh in a creature. I believe you can see that pretty good. That's all the different little patterns, the same as the underneath the Great Lakes where they're mining the salt. Now that became salt through a different process. This is a mud fossil. Now, and it turned into, it took on clay mud, which is blood, really. It's the bloody tissue of the body. And there's like, this is a very heavy red bloody layer, and in here is where the right in this area right here is where the tendon and muscle meet. These are the tendon fibrils that come up, and I'm going to show you some video of that in a second here. All right, once again, now that you've seen what I drew in that little picture I drew over there, that's the truck. He's coming down, he's taking out the black blood, and I believe that is where the red spots are. And I'm going to show you in my mud fossils, the one that I showed you there that had turned into clay, I will show you where how this whole structure sets up. That is flesh from a creature. Underneath the Great Lakes, above it is skin. All right, that mud fossil I showed before with the muscle fibers in it, this is it under the microscope. Now, I did this a while back, so I'm going to let this play. I'm going to turn the speaker off, so I'm going to let this play and I'll explain what's going on. This is the tendons. These are the fibers, and that's the abrupt transition. I'm going to see right there, I'm going to stop it. You see how abrupt that transition is? That literally is exactly like a flat piece. It's this thing here, just totally squared off. And they are so enormous, these straps, that these are what's seen in South America, that they were mining on the top of, driving vehicles over. And it's also broken off right here, and these are what is in the Baalbek Stones. These are the Baalbek Stones. Also, you will see these up against this material here, which is the glue that holds it to the muscle. You'll see in a second, in Finnegal's cave, and I will show that in a minute. So let's just continue on with this. I'm showing that the blood is here, and that's the red blood, and that's the black vein returns, and you see these little white spots in certain places. That's mineralization. The minerals are embedded in the tendinous material and extremely strong. Then you go into this glue, and it's literally glue, and it glues these somehow biologically flat as a pancake. It just goes up and glues them. Now we're going to move this way. This is when it gets really interesting. Now, I'm going to stop it on occasion. You see this, and you see all these little patterns, and you'll see this a lot in my videos because that is the pattern of tendons. Now, the glue is here. Now we're going to come, and it's going to start to go into the muscle fibers, which you will recognize. You see, the glue has stopped here. That is the first abrupt transition. In Finnegal's cave, you will see the other side up to here, and this is gone, because this is the soft muscle. Now, that's the first transition. There is transitions everywhere. That is the second transition. All right, you see there's a little squirrely thing. Then it comes to here. That is a transition leading into the fibers of the muscle, which I showed you, and those are the same type of fibers that are in the Great Lakes, under the Great Lakes that they're mining. Now it gets fuzzy in here and back and forth, but it's still got minerals, a lot of mineralization in the early part of the muscle as it starts to turn red. And there's going to be another transition coming up. Okay, here's the next transition. Now you see these holes here? Those are the holes that are in, that service them for blood. That's what service them for blood. I know this is very foggy or whatever, or shaky looking or fuzzy, but that's what it is. Nothing, you can see what it is. But that's another transition. Then there's another transition. You see that? I'll try to focus it in probably. I can't remember what I did here. But those are the blood holes. Okay, that's a pretty good shot right there. All right, you see all of the different muscle. As it comes out here, it will turn into all that stuff. Here, it's making a transition into that, into the red muscle. And they're mining the red muscle from underneath the Great Lakes. These are mud fossil lungs, and I know it's going to be very hard to see, but there's a lot of different colors and a lot of different separate little chunks of minerals in there, which would become rounded little stones of different colors. And that's what happens to lungs. Now, if you can see right there, that's on Lake Huron. Somebody sent me this picture. That is exactly what happens to lungs, the particles of the lungs. They change into all these different colors. And I cannot totally explain it, but I do see it inside the mud fossil lungs that I have. And in certain conditions, they turn. What happens is they have to be soaked in blood for a long period of time. It appears just like opals. But in this, they take on the transition metal of their intended biological purpose. I believe these transition metals that are in these little grains in here are biologically designed in your body or in the creature, whoever owns these or owned them, that they were set up to have these metals in these particular little chunks, in these particular layers. There's red, there's blue, and there's all kinds of different colors. That's not a good one. I have some, there's a lot of them that have spectacular colors. And this is the result of a spectacular color. And opals are spectacular colors that are biological things. And I tell you what, I'm going to show you a heart that's a biological thing soaked in blood. Blood is the preservative. But all of this stuff, you see this? That's the result of transition metals. Transition metals are in the blood of creatures. They're in the blood of creatures to carry around. They're transition metals. They attach and detach in an extremely small change of pH. That's how molecules get carried around your body. That's what these metals do, the metals that create these colors. And that's why they're found in the lungs. For some reason, they're doing something in that lung and getting attached to a molecule to carry it around somewhere. But they're in the blood, let me put it that way. And these are soaked in blood, and so are opals. And that's why opals are found, and they're all biological material. All right, this is a Yoa nut. I'm not sure where this picture came from, so I don't know who to credit for it, but they call it a Yoa nut. It's an opal from Australia in this Yoa region. And you can see how exact, this is a heart, and all of this particular tissue that makes up I believe these are the heart strings, or it's something to do with the heart, this particular section of the heart. And it has to have this color, which means it has to have a certain metal. And blood is red, obviously. It has to have FeO2 iron, ferrous oxide iron. Then you have the fascia around the outside and the muscular tissue, the ventricle walls, all of that certain stuff. And you see the different colors are specifically different in specifically different areas. That is the key. Your body needs exact certain metals to make that thing work. They need exact certain metals to do this job. They need exact certain metals to create this, the arteries or whatever those are, the aorta and so forth. That is the nature of your body, and I don't think fully is understood. And there's 100 transition metals. It's not just iron and copper and silver and gold, and it goes all the way up to uranium is in your body. And what's the other one? Iridium. And that's why they found iridium in the iridium layer, not from the iridium layer was a clay layer, which is the skin of creatures that eroded off the skin layer during the Great Flood, and iridium is in your blood, and that eroded out with it too. It's all a process, these mud fossils, of being soaked of the organic stuff that makes them rot. For years they were soaked, turned waterlogged in the pH of bodies. So the fleshy stuff didn't really care that much because it lives in that pH in water. It's your body's a bag of water. And so it wasn't a big deal to the body, and the things that wanted to explode found a pathway out into solution. That's what creates mud fossils. When it dried out, and I can't tell you how the earth drained, but it did, and it's all written in these texts. So I'm going to go with these texts because everything I've seen indicates its effect. And going all the way back to the Titans, I'm not just going for the Bible, but I go for all of them. Every single one of them says the same story, basically. That the earth began with literally Gaia, the Earth Mother, and then from there created Titans, and they went crazy and had all insane things and monsters and all that. And I believe in every word of that. There's nothing else that does make sense now. So don't tell me, oh, it's crazy, oh, you guys nuts. Well, good for you. I'm going with it because I can see it. All right, this is what they call kidney ore, kidney stone. Well, it was a kidney at one time. They don't understand it. They just can't open their eyes big enough. Now, I'm going to play this out. Listen. Or I'll talk as it goes along. But I'm showing it, okay, and here's the kidneys. This is what the kidneys are. And then they give off this bile duct. What I'm showing here is Lake Natron. Lake Natron puts out a chemical called natron. And it's in the waters of Lake Natron. And it comes out of the bile duct and leaks in to the lake itself. And the features are there. They're very clear to see. And I'm showing them here now. I'm going to just turn it up so you can hear. This is what I'm saying. Is the kidney. You can see all the different lobe structures. This is the entrance to the kidney. And you'll notice that this tissue at one time is funneled here. It's not just running down here, running down here, running over this way. It's all funneled here. It's all funneled here. It's all funneled here. That's exactly the shape of a kidney. It enters into the kidney to be pulled the water out. That's what your kidney does. And that's what the natron does. And the bile duct is here. Now that green is not anything like the green around here. That's the only green that is that color. You look around, you don't see any other green. This is a green that's growing green, growing green. That is bile green. Now, when that gets into this area, it causes all kinds of things. Here, hold on, you see that? All right, and anything that ends, you don't see any other green. This is a green that's growing green. Watch when it comes down. I'm going to try to stop it. It's bile green. Now, whoops, I'm going to see if I can get a good stop. All right, you see it? It's leaking into the lake. When it leaks into the lake, it creates the chemistry that causes this to be called a petrifying lake. It's extremely loaded with natron, and natron is not, sodium is not SO, sodium is Na. It's natrium. That's what sodium is. Now listen to what I have to say. I'd love to hear myself. Gets into this area, it causes all kinds of things. All right, and anything not really that ends up here is desiccated. It's dried out to a point where it's mummified. Really, is what that's what the ancients used it for. Was to make stone per se to mummify. And this particular area here is completely littered with death. Absolutely littered with death. All right, I'm not going to bother to go anymore. You can go up and look at this. It's called Does Lake Natron Really Turn Animals to Stone? And what it does is it dries them out so incredibly that they appear to be stone, but they're really the same stuff that I showed you underneath the Great Lakes. It's just saltified. I don't know the natrium and the nature of that particular element and how it invades tissues to cause them to become salt. I'm not sure, but they do. Now I'm going to show you some. Watch this. You see that? Pork ribs, and that's pink salt mine. Now somehow the natron appears, and see this is the little dots and everything. Now I don't know whether they drill holes into that, but there I can see that in all the tissues of the body there are these little tiny blood vessels, and I believe that might be what those are. Now, but I certainly can't attest to that. This is not my picture. I did not take this. Now, and by the way, I don't know where it came from, but I credit whoever took it. Now, you will see dozens of different types of salt on the market, and they do contain different types of chemistry. I will agree with that because I have seen it. I know that's a fact. Now, what is the good kind of chemistry? What's the bad kind of chemistry? I'm not 100% sure. Is it Dead Sea salts are a combination of eroded salts from all kinds of different dead things accumulated in the Dead Sea, and then you get all kinds of different types of transition metals and different types of really it's the transition metals and the minerals that you want to get in the they are in a salt form, and that is what you need to be healthy. That is healthful. I will say that's I'm pretty sure that's a fact. This sort of stuff contains the minerals and the transition metals that your body uses to move things around in your body, to transition them, to grab them lightly, bring them somewhere else, and transition them off in a different, slightly different pH. That's how the body you have works. And I see that in these different things that come out of the ground. Those are transition metals. If you've been in a mud fossil site at all, I go over this a dozen zillion times, and I'm sorry to do it, but people don't seem to make the connection. This is so important. These different states they can take on mean that they can grab a hold of a molecule from your lungs, carry it down to your toes, and drop it off because the pH is just a little bit different. That is the nature of all of these things, and they all have a job in you. They're not just floating around. They don't really think they have. They call them trace elements. Some call them contamination type of thing. They're not. Well, sometimes they are. Sometimes they are. There's things that you can have in your body that are not supposed to be there that interfere with the transition metals. Yes, I agree with that. And there are transition metals that are in your body that are in excess. And yes, I agree with that. And primarily they're iron and so forth. Anyway, I've been talking about that forever. And they say eat a bunch of different colored vegetables and things, and that's where the colors come from. Now, they eat close to the ground, and try to stay away from the fast foods. Really, that's the only thing I can tell you. But I shouldn't even be talking about this kind of stuff. I'm just saying the transition metals are why I see the things I see in the mud fossils, and I can identify. A lot of it is from color. And as soon as you put a little water on something, they rehydrate, and they poof, to come back to looking almost like new again. I mean, you know what I mean. They display themselves in a much more easy to see way. Let's put it that way. This is from a trailer, a 30-second trailer to a show that they were going to have on the Discovery Channel called Drain the Great Lakes Discovery Science. Now, I've been watching the Science Channel, not science fiction or sci-fi channel, but the Science Channel, SCI, very, very, very good. And this was on there, so I started looking into this. Now look, you see this pattern in the rock? They consider this to be the Great Lakes drained. And now they're showing you, and they've done this in extremely high resolution. And I looked at the whole thing, and it is from a creature's body. There is absolutely no question. This is skin. That skin, that starts into your body layer tissues. And that is just, that's what it is. And then as you go underneath the Great Lakes, you get into salt mines. And the salt, apparently, there was natron or something, some reason the chemistry forced the flesh to become salt. And it does happen, and that's what they used to do for embalming. So that's all I can say is that happens. I'll show you another couple shots of the draining thing, but you should go up here and watch this. I don't want to infringe on their research. I just want to show this is what they showed, and that's a not normal layer. Oh, it just got dirty one day and dirty another day. Dirty. No, you see that here, and then another one up here. That is the patterns of skin and the investments of skin. And if they could get really close in here, they would be able to see there's blood vessels and things in here. I don't think they can do quite that much. All right, there's another area that's all large skin. And okay, now whoops, I got to stop that one right there because this is the one that shows the tendon fibers. Those are something here is sticking up here as the fibrils. Now, and then in the beginning, I believe they show where they're actually, I don't know if they do or not. Yeah, right there, okay. I believe some of these are actually footprints walking down here. This is underneath the, there's something else going on here. They show all kinds of patterns that I see on top of skin. So something is going on here more than they're talking about. They don't understand this stuff, but they had a whole lot of explanations that didn't work for me. So I'm just showing you what I see. I almost forgot. This is Finnegal's Cave, and that is the tendon fibrils, and that is the gluey stuff. You see it right across the top. Now, all of the fleshy stuff from above has eroded off. It's the soft, red, fleshy stuff, and that's what turns into clay and erodes, turns into sand and clay and that sort of stuff. All right, this is also the same tendon fibrils. That is at the abrupt transition where you get the wrinkle zone. And then there's some red, there's arterial spots where it had blood coming and so forth. But this is tendon fibrils. And the abrupt transitions at the top, that's the wrinkle zone between where it breaks and where they're under tension and they snap, and then it comes down to the other ones. Okay, I'm going to leave it at this. The draining of the Great Lakes I showed all the different anatomy, biology, and so forth, and they say that this is the same thing that is under the Great Lakes that is in the Grand Canyon and in this topography like this. And you can see it. I showed the walls of the canyons there that are in the Great Lakes that are just exactly like this. They're muscle, and there is also this underneath the Great Lakes that has turned to salt now. So let's take another look here at something else. How about this? Now this we see out west, and where they sew this in here, you see this red and this fibers and so forth coming down here. Very, very similar to, and I would say identical to, this right here. Alright, so I'm saying this is biology. I think we should look at it, and I mean all the other things that I presented need to be looked at, and they've been ignored, and it's a very, very fringe element that's even considering it, because as soon as you consider it amongst people that think they're fully educated about what they read is fully accepted, and they read an extra book than you did, so they're more articulate than you are, so they discount everything that you say. And because my books are not their books, even close, they just don't even let me turn to page 1, and they will not look at page 1. They won't even look at the cover. So until people open their eyes to this 100% solid, factual evidence, the Earth is what they said it was. The Titans, Gaia. It started right from there. Let's start looking at it that way and see what comes up. Maybe that's all insanity. It looks like it is. But now I see what we're looking at is the insanity. Oh, no, they're all silly people. No. So come up to Mud Fossil University on YouTube, which you're probably here now watching this. Subscribe, click the little bell thing or whatever it is you have to do. I'm really not sure, to be honest, where you get notified. And stay on top of this, because the world's changing fast, and this is meaningful stuff. All right, God bless you all, my friends. And I will talk to you again from the Citadel of Truth, Mud Fossil University. Okay, this is where you have to come, Mud Fossil University, the Citadel of Truth, and everything you will see up here is backed by some material form of evidence. No just fluffy theories of wormhole this and string theory that. If I can't show it with light, and we do refer to the ancient texts as as corroborating evidence, not necessarily as, oh, we should just believe there was giants and dragons and all this. But when you find a dragon in the desert and a leviathan in the desert, and you find all the evidence that supports the things that are stated, then you must look. And that has not happened. So this is where it happens. All right, I will see you there.